During winter, schools end their study sessions earlier, so Jianru and Lu Cheng return home a bit sooner too. One night before going to bed, Jianxing goes to the bathroom and sees 2 large boxes of oranges and apples in the hall, along with several sheets of fluorescent paper and ribbons. It's then that she suddenly realizes that Christmas is coming. Christmas Eve is the eve of Christmas. The evening study sessions cover history and physics. The physics for the 3rd class is taught by Class 1's head teacher, Zhou Qi. It's rumored that Zhou Qi and Xu Zhengqing were best friends in high school, and they share a very common interest, showing movies to students. So, on Christmas Eve, both Class 1 and 3 watch an American comedy, Home Alone. During the movie, all the lights in the classroom are turned off. Everyone is amused by the plot and roars with laughter. From time to time, you can hear waves of laughter coming from Class 1. It seems like there's a cat's paw hidden in the laughter, its claws scratching Jianxing's ears and heart. It makes her feel like a traitor, her body in the Wei camp and her heart in the Han. Darkness is indeed a good hiding place. Hidden feelings can be temporarily released, and no one pays attention to what they've grown into or where they've spread. But because of this protection of darkness, a sense of adventure and impulsiveness slowly grows in Jianxing's heart. People in love are always controlled by their emotions, like addicts. Jianxing pretends to go to the bathroom and leaves. As she passes Class 1, she pretends to not care but is stiff as she glances into the classroom. The classroom is also dark, and Jianxing can't see a clear face. Suddenly, people in the class are amused by the plot and Jianxing suddenly realizes what she has done. Counting, it's only been more than a month since she saw Xu Zhengqing. Is she so hopeless? Bie Smoke, help. Some people really have become incurable idiots. Bie Smoke, what the hell is this stupid operation of stuffing a bracelet into the apple? I freaking bit down and snapped the chain. God damn it, my tooth. Bie Smoke, help, help, help. He's not going to try and stuff a ring into an orange tomorrow, is he? Bie Smoke. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, Idiot Kin sent me a box of apples and oranges. He individually wrapped each one so beautifully, but didn't put any foam board in the box. So when I got it, 8 out of 10 were smashed. After school, the milk tea shop is completely full due to the special day. Jianxing takes her cell phone and hurriedly leaves the shop, reading Chen Yanbei's messages while tightly holding onto the bag in her hand. In the bag is an apple. The store packaged it very well. Just from the craft you can see it's worlds apart from what Jianru sells. However, the reason she chose to buy instead of directly taking from home wasn't because of the presentation. At this moment, a new message popped up on her phone from Chen Yanbei. Jianxing was looking down at her phone when suddenly an apple appeared in front of her. She looked up and was met with the smiling face of Qin Jiaming. Here, Merry Christmas Eve. Qin Jiaming looks down and sees that Jianxing already has one in her hand. Surprised, he says, "Oh, who got to you first?" Jianxing pauses, unable to reply. This pause prompts Qin Jiaming to narrow his eyes and draw a lengthy O. Jianxing quickly interrupts him, "Don't get the wrong idea." Qin Jiaming raises his hands in surrender, smiling. "I didn't say anything. Aren't you being a bit too defensive?" He nudges her lightly with his shoulder, asking, "Who gave it to you? Someone from your class?" Just as Jianxing is about to shush him, Wu Dan from the side comes over with a handful of apples and says, "Here, take one. Quick, quick, quick. They're so heavy." Looking at the colorful apples, Jianxing is at a loss for which one to pick. In the end, it's still Qin Jiaming who picks out the largest one and hands it to her. Jianxing looks at the excess apples and can't help but laugh. "These. Why don't you take these back? We have a lot at home." "Tut, young lady, you really don't know the meaning of romance, do you? Are these just apples from home?" "These are apples filled with our sincere blessings," Qin Jiaming explains assertively. Jianxing chooses to stay silent. Since it was a holiday, the normally deserted streets after school were bustling with activity today. Everyone had a few blessings in their arms. King Jian looks down at the bag in her hand and hesitates slightly, licking her lips. She looks around. She can't seem to see anyone she usually hangs out with. Jianxing checks the time on her phone and is just about to ask Qin Jiaming something when suddenly, Wu Dan from the milk tea shop behind her yells out, "What the hell is this?" His shock attracts the attention of many people around. Jianxing also looks over and sees a particularly large packaged apple on the counter of the shop. What's different about this apple is that its packaging has 2 little ears, making it look like a rabbit. Upon closer inspection, Jianxing can indeed see the distinguishing facial features of a rabbit on this apple. The rabbit's round eyes appear cheeky as one of them winks, the mouth is curved into a smirk, and its two little front teeth are exposed, making it cute yet somewhat arrogant. A well-thought-out gift indeed. Jianxing thought of what Qin Jiming just said and couldn't help but say this blessing should be more than just sincere. All fancy, definitely from a girl, Qin Jiming said, shouting at Wu Dan. Who's it for? I don't know, there's no note or anything, Wu Dan says excitedly. I'll go ask Bin Brother. As he's saying this, Bin Brother comes out of the side room and says, interesting, do we really need to ask who this is for? Many people at the scene fall silent for a moment before simultaneously revealing an icy expression, which is mixed with grumbling, damn it. As long as that damn Xu Zhengqing is here, none of us can find someone easily. In the midst of various wails and sighs, Jianxing silently tightens her grip on the bag. The apples inside seem to suddenly weigh 1,000 pounds, making her palm hurt. She remained silent amidst the complex emotions that welled up inside of her and was about to turn around and leave when a familiar voice reached her ears. Why is everyone clustered here? As expected, Xu Zhengqing had received many blessings. However, unlike the flustered Wu Dan and others, Xu Zhengqing carried the bundled-up apple wrapping paper in one hand. Having received so many, he attracted a fair amount of attention as he walked by, but he acted as if he didn't notice and looked relaxed as always. He seemed used to being the center of attention. Ah, Brother Xu, your performance this year is not good, Qin Jiming teased. Xu Zhengqing shoves an apple into Qin Jiming's arms with a laugh. No need for thanks, just doing charity. Qin Jiming cursed, you son of a... Not yet, I'll keep trying, Xu Zhengqing said as he walked into the milk tea shop. He put all the apples he was carrying onto the counter and spotted the rabbit apple, casually asking, who's the lucky one for this? Everyone around responded in unison, you. Xu Zhengqing blinked, and then, as if something dawned on him, a soft smile crept onto his face while under the gaze of everyone. It was in this moment that Jianxing's grip loosened and without any defense, she dropped the bag in her hand. The apples fell onto the ground with a thud. Even though it was a heavy sound, it mysteriously drowned out all other noises around. Jianxing watched as Xu Zhengqing picked up the rabbit apple. Then to Bin Brother, he said, I'll take this one, you can distribute the rest freely. His words resulted in a chorus of exclamations from the crowd. Jianxing watched as Xu Zhengqing waved goodbye to everyone indifferent. His lean figure slowly disappeared into the night. Everyone was discussing the source of the rabbit apple. Nobody noticed the forgotten blessing that had been left on the ground. Jianxing got up to leave with a chuckle. She happened to glance at the apple left on the ground and wondered how she could have forgotten. The money for the apple came from Jianru. Just what was she so indecisive about? 2009年12月24日21点05分06秒 Smoke from the white smoke. Why aren't you talking? Don't you feel stupid? 2009年12月24日21点35分49秒 Bamboo between. Yes, it's very stupid. Students, if I see such a stupid mistake on anyone's final exam, get under the national flag and stand there, do you hear me? The teacher's voice rang out during the first lesson of the morning, which was mathematics. Everyone appeared a bit weary, their minds not fully awake yet. The math teacher slapped the desk to catch their attention. Wake up everyone. What's going on? You weren't this terrible during the Christmas Eve celebrations last night. Today is Christmas. Can't you at least pretend to be excited? Yesterday's excitement was too much. Let's just take it easy today for Christmas. Someone mumbled in the crowd. The math teacher chuckled. Oh, so you are saving all your energy for New Year's. Do you have a show for New Year this year? It's widely known that the school holds an annual New Year's gala. The preparation for this year's gala had started a month earlier. Class 3 was supposed to have a performance, but it seemed to be dropped during the rehearsal, so everyone in the class will be an audience member. Not having a performance on the stage on an annual event is not really something to be proud of, so the lecture hall immediately turned silent. The bell rang right on time, sparing everyone from the awkwardness. Hey, I heard that Xu Zhengqing had performed in your school gala before. What kind of show was it? As soon as this topic was brought up, everyone who was just sounding drained a moment ago perked up with wide eyes. Lin Yule was always the first one to join in the excitement, and the second one to show off Xu Zhengqing. As soon as someone instigated, he immediately followed. He was singing. Halfway through the performance, the sound system failed. He just kept singing without any change in expression. Halfway through the a cappella, the sound system started working again. Guess what? He didn't miss a beat and immediately synced with the accompaniment. Dang, why do I feel like he can do anything? The key point is that his grades are also good. How's that fair? It's probably family influence. I heard his grandmother was a singer. Linjia shared. Moreover, isn't Zuban one of his relatives? A direct uncle if I'm not wrong. Anyway, everyone in their family is pretty impressive. Ah, that's why. I get it now. No wonder he dreams about being an astronaut. He actually has the qualifications. I can barely make it through daily life, let alone go to space. Very accurate self-awareness. Linjia gives thumbs up to the guy, suddenly turned towards Ji Xing and called out, Jian Xing. Jian Xing and Linjia are hardly acquaintances, so Jian Xing was pretty bemused when Linjia called out to her, What's up? With a mischievous hee-hee, Linjia approached her and leaned against Zulu's desk, her eyes full of laughter. The English test paper we got the day before yesterday. Can I have a look at it? I just want to check your closed test answers. Oh sure, I can lend it to you, Jian Xing replies while rummaging through her drawer. As she pulls out the English book, Zulu suddenly stands up, startling Linjia. What happened? Without a word, Zulu left. Seeing her leave, Linjia grew even more flustered. She looked to Jian Xing questioningly. Was it me? Should I not have leaned against her desk? Did I disturb her? Jian Xing glanced over at Zulu, who had left by then, and remained silent. She took out the English test paper and put it on her desk, then went back to rummaging through the drawer, looking for her own answer sheet. Linjia, feeling embarrassed, quickly went back to her seat. Having found her own answer sheet, Jian Xing compared her answers with those written on Xu Jing's sheet that lay on Zulu's table, then placed her sheet back in the drawer. It wasn't until the bell rang that Zulu returned. Throughout the class, she didn't say a single word or look at Jian Xing. As soon as the class ended, Linjia came over and apologized. Hey, I didn't mean to offend you earlier. I just casually leaned on your desk. I promise I won't do that again. It's okay. Jian Xing has good grades in English, so it's understandable you wanted to borrow her test paper. She's definitely the best in our class, considering she's the English class representative, Zulu interrupted, her voice filled with irony. Feeling annoyed, Linjia furrowed her brows, her voice cold as ice. What's wrong with you, Zulu? Stung by Linjia's words, Zulu's eyes welled up. Glaring back at Linjia, she responded, What do you mean? What's wrong? Isn't what I said the truth? Is it wrong to praise someone? Why are you cursing someone? So, just because you're a class representative, you can curse at people now. Without waiting for Linjia to respond, Zulu buried her face into her desk and started crying. Unable to hold in her laughter, Linjia retorted back, You're so stupid. After that, she turned around and walked away without a second glance. The whole incident was not essentially about Jian Xing at all, yet whenever people talked about it, they always added, It all started when Linjia asked Jian Xing for her English exam papers. In a short 10-minute break, Jian Xing had heard this countless times. It was annoying for her, and she decided to discuss it with Zulu during the long break, but just as the class began, Zulu exploded when she saw Jian Xing's exam papers under hers. She threw the papers onto Jian Xing's desk and cried even harder, Why did you give me your papers? I didn't ask for them. So what if my answers are not as correct as yours? Although Jian Xing had not made many friends, she was not stupid. She could sense the difference in people's attitudes towards her. She had noticed Zulu's coldness towards her after their midterm exams. Initially, Zulu just stopped chatting with her. Then gradually stopped dining with her and finally avoided talking at all. This obvious esterification, of course, did not escape Jian Xing, but she did not know the reason. However, now she sort of understood. She frowned and said, I didn't mean it that way. Whether you meant it or not, you know it in your heart. Zulu, wiping her tears, turned her head away and did not look at Jian Xing again. The whole class eyes were on them. Jian Xing pursed her lips, smoothed out the papers on the table, and clipped them back into her book. This was the physics class. Because Jian Xing had done well in her physics midterm, Joki had a good impression of her and frequently referred to her problem-solving methods during the class. Each time Joki mentioned her, Zulu would cry even louder. The moment Joki announced the class was over, everyone could hear Zulu sobbing. Linjia, who was always straightforward, scoffed and said, How interesting. Now it's wrong to be excellent. Zulu couldn't bear it any longer, stood up and shouted at Linjia, Who are you talking about? Unfazed, Linjia replied, whoever it applies to. Out of anger, Zulu tried to toss the book on Linjia's desk, but Linjia tugged her hand and said, "Dare to try. I don't tolerate you as Jianxing does." Zulu held on to the book and sobbed. Linjia did not let go of her hand either, showing no signs of releasing it. Seeing this, the rest of the class quieted down. Chen Shi, the monitor, was just about to intervene when Xu Changlin's voice came from behind Jianxing. "What happened?" Jianxing was startled. The next second, Zulu let go of Linjia's book, and Linjia let go of her hand. While Zulu was still sobbing, Linjia stood up and faced Xu Changlin. "Sorry, my mouth gets me into trouble. I accidentally made Zulu cry by speaking the truth." "You crossed the line, Linjia," Zulu shouted. Xu Changlin frowned. "Enough. Come to the office with me." Zulu, crying, left the room first. Linjia followed her leisurely. As she walked past Jianxing, she looked up as if she knew Jianxing was watching her. Jianxing paused, pursed her lips, and was about to leave, but was stopped by Linjia's gesture. Jianxing subconsciously stopped, then saw Linjia give her a reassuring smile and a nod saying, "Don't worry, it has nothing to do with you." I'm not sure what Linjia and Zulu said to Xu Changlin, but the incident didn't escalate. Jianxing was not involved, and it ended with both of them writing a self-examination. When Linjia took her seat, Jianxing heard someone mention her name. Linjia glanced at her from the corner of her eye, but Jianxing didn't look back until Zulu sat down. The crying continued, but this time Jianxing didn't show any more concern. They continued to sit together in silence and awkwardness, and no one mentioned their previous closeness. Their lives suddenly returned to solitude. Jianxing, though momentarily uncomfortable, felt a significant relief, because she understood that it wasn't Zulu who broke their relationship. It had never been established at all. She didn't feel regretful, but sometimes she would consider where the suitable scale of human warmth and coldness laid during her idle time when she glanced at Zulu. But whether she figured it out or not, she was certain that Linjia had never even touched upon this range of results. "Jianxing, I brought some grapes from home. Want to try some?" In the hallway, Linjia didn't even enter the classroom and passed the lunchbox through the window. Since the little incident, Linjia often sought out Jianxing. After a few days, others started to wonder if they had become sworn sisters. Jianxing did consider refusing, but every time she thought about it, she saw sincerity and calmness in Linjia's eyes. In comparison, it seemed like Jianxing was the one who was calculative. So she politely took one, smiled, and said, "Thank you." Linjia casually and familiarly lifted her chin at her, and then walked towards the main door while chewing, her cheeks bulging. Just as Linjia left the window, Jianxing heard Linjia say, "Yo, Zhu class want one?" Jianxing paused, turned her head, and looked. She did not see Xu Zhengqing's figure, but she heard his clear laugh. He joked, "Is auntie still worried about not growing tall?" "Dumb, right? It's for replenishing glucose," Linjia said. Xu Zhengqing responded with an "Oh, it can prevent blood clots too." Linjia tried to take the grape from Xu Zhengqing's hand, but he moved away, put it in his mouth, and mumbled, "Thank you," the way the usual students play around openly with each other. Jianxing pricked up her ears, noting that Xu Zhengqing walked by the window, his figure moving past and then disappearing into the distance. The weather in He County is usually dreadful in December, with continuous snow, fog, and rain that can last an entire month. Yet by the end of the long stretch, on the last day, the whole sky had cleared up, contrastingly white as though all the snow had been swept back up into the heavens. Jianxing was leaning on the railing of the corridor, looking at the square where students from all classes were busy moving chairs to the playground. Everyone was moving in the same direction, and it looked like a school of sardines. A voice suddenly ran up to her ear. Jianxing paused and turned to see Linjia. Linjia was not looking at her, her arms dangling onto the walls, her chin rested on the railing and her waist slumped onto the floor with a blank expression on her face. There was a strange sense of mischief in the look. Jianxing curved her lips and echoed in agreement. "It does look like it." "Well then it's fine if it looks like it," Linjia sighed, glanced at Jianxing and said, "Shall we go and join the school of sardines?" Jianxing met her gaze, paused for 2 seconds, then nodded and said, "All right." On the way to the playground, Linjia bumped into numerous familiar faces, greeting everyone cheerfully. Upon reaching their class's area on the playground, she took the small stool from Jianxing and placed it in front of herself, then asked, "Do you want a drink? Linula and the others will be buying some soon." Jianxing shook her head to decline. Lin Jie grunted in response, then dashed off to join Lin Yula and the others at the end of the line, leaving Jianxing on her own. Jianxing turned her head to see Zulu struggling with her own stool, not knowing where to sit. From across a dozen or so people, Jianxing's gaze collided with hers for a brief few seconds before Jianxing broke the gaze. When Lin Jie returned, she was tying her shoelaces and casually said, "I thought you would invite her to sit with us." With no expression, Jianxing replied, she wouldn't want to. Lin Jie seemed to be satisfied with this answer and grinned on hearing it. She said, "Probably she would neither want to sit here nor with you on the way home." Jianxing tugged at her lip and chose not to reply. Misunderstanding her silence, Lin Jie tried to console her. "It doesn't matter. Once the finals are over, we'll be divided into liberal arts and sciences. Then you two will get separated naturally." "Hey Jianxing, what do you plan to major in, humanities or sciences?" Just as Jianxing was about to answer, her attention was drawn to a commotion from the team next to them. Everyone curiously turned to see the source of the noise. Amid the rumbling crowd, a shadowy figure dressed in white was seen heading towards the backstage, and on a closer look, one could make out a bridal veil fluttering at the back of the person's head. "Damn it! Is that a wedding dress?" Lin Jie was immediately distracted and tried to get a better look. After failing to make anything out, she pulled a guy from the neighboring class and asked, "Is she from your class? What kind of program requires such a grand costume?" "No, they are from the first class. It seems like they are performing a stage drama," said the guy. "I heard someone saying that they saw Xu Zhengqing in a suit backstage. I wonder if they are performing together. They are such a perfect pair, it's crazy." "That can't be. I remember Lan Yu has a crush on Xu Zhengqing, right?" On hearing this, Lin Jie became more excited. "This can't be happening. Is Xu Zhengqing getting married to Lan Yu? How many wedding gifts should I prepare then?" While everyone else was laughing and joking about the matter, Jianxing slowly turned her gaze towards the backstage. The veil was still visible at the corner, and in the chill winter air, the girl was bare-shouldered with uncovered arms. In no time, Jianxing noticed a pair of hands helping the girl into a jacket. It was a black suit jacket. While the surrounding was quite noisy, Jianxing couldn't hear a thing. She was staring at the pair of hands. She couldn't tell whose they were, yet it felt as though those hands were not holding a jacket, but the throbbing heart inside her chest. Between each inhale and exhale, the space for her heart to beat became increasingly small, so she had to strive to hide her unmistakable unease, feigning calmness as she stared at everything around her. The distance was not close. Even with Jianxing's good eyesight, it was impossible to see any details on this pair of hands. Trying to identify the person from the sight of one hand seemed like a wild goose chase. Moreover, she had no idea what distinctive details Xu Zhengqing had on his hands. She never had a chance to take a proper look at him. She was always in the corner of a room full of friends, conveying the most obscure affection. The wind started to blow, her unease gradually transformed into fear in the wind and the desire to flee from cowardice. Then the girl suddenly turned around. Her hands were holding her clothes, bending slightly and leaning forward, as if waving and greeting someone. She was very happy. Her eyes turned into crescent moons when she laughed. Even though she had taken off her school uniform, put on makeup and styled her hair, Jianxing still recognized the girl at once. It was the same girl who used to arrange books for Xu Zhengqing. It seemed she was their class representative. She was very beautiful, and there was a certain familiarity about her that made Jianxing restless. After hesitating for a few seconds, she casually asked Lin Jie, "Her name is Lan Yu, isn't it?" "Yes, it sounds good, doesn't it?" Lin Jie said. "She is the English representative of our class in junior high school. She transferred from Luqing." Jianxing smiled and said, "Yes, it sounds good." "And your name is also nice," Lin Jie casually said. "I noticed your name when I first saw the class list. Your parents probably hoped you would always be lucky when they chose this name for you." Listening to this, Jianxing neither admitted nor denied it, just the smile gradually faded from her eyes. At this moment, Lan Yu drew backstage with her clothes in her hands. The countdown in Jianxing's heart was also being pulled second by second. 3 hours, the whole party had only 3 hours, 180 minutes, 10,800 seconds. Lan Yu's performance wouldn't be later than 10,800 seconds. As for how long each second was, Jianxing thought probably only she knew. The party officially started at 6:40 p.m., just as dusk began to fall. The lights on the podium lit up, and a smooth piano melody flowed from the speakers. The host took the stage, gave the opening speech, and announced the order of events. After a few minutes, the piano music suddenly shifted to rhythmic street music. The host retreated from the stage amid screams and applause. The first performance was a co-ed version of Happy Worship with a street dance by students from a sophomore class. The atmosphere was instantly heated. Jianxing had never participated in such an event before. All around her, everyone was frantically waving their arms, and despite it being a winter night, she inexplicably sensed a summer-like fervor. She looked around, everyone focused on the stage, feeling as if she had suddenly stepped into a new world, a detached expression on her face. Among all the people, she was a clear misfit. Was this their youth? Nijia suddenly rested her chin on Jianxing's neck, singing along with the song, La 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 why era. Let go. Let me. Say. Forget your existence. What's worth expecting? Exchange your invitation to it. It's better to be superbly excellent than to desire caring. Happiness is contagious. Generously, come on. Finish singing, she shouted to Jianxing's ear. Jianxing, why aren't you singing? Don't you know how? Jianxing's drifting thoughts suddenly pulled back to reality, with a deafening noise next to her ear. She instinctively shifted to the side and laughed, saying, I'm tone deaf. Pooh. Who cares about your tone at this point? Lin Jia dismissed. Just follow along and sing. Lin Jia continued to raise Jianxing's hand and kept chanting and singing, regardless of whether she was on beat or not, or even if she was lost with the lyrics. Gradually, Jianxing seemed to hear her own voice. One after another, the programs on the stage came to an end. By the time Jianxing came back to her senses, she found herself standing with the rest of the crowd, as Lin Jia had unconsciously pulled her up, probably because the performances were mostly heavy metal and half of the students were standing. Neither did the teachers bother to correct it. Jianxing stared blankly at her surroundings. Lin Jia was still laughing and asked who she was looking at. Jianxing looked at the smile on Lin Jia's face. After a while, she saw herself in Lin Jia's eyes, her face not as dazed as she had imagined but rather with a smile which she had never seen earlier. For a moment, Jianxing thought she was seeing another person. Not until the performers left the stage and the music stopped, everyone gradually sat down. Jianxing suddenly realized she was indeed seeing herself earlier. The one with that smile on her face was indeed her. This somehow slackened the chain wrapped around her heart for many years. Lan Yu's stage drama began at this point. She was wearing a white dress and entered the stage initially alone. The stage music was from a violin, a light-hearted melody that seemed to float in mid-air. Jianxing's heart was also uplifted. Her heart seemed to step on each sound of the music. She was as concentrated as everyone else on the stage, but only her heart was hanging at this moment. Suddenly, with the change in Lan Yu's dance movements, the music abruptly turned into the deep sound of a cello. Like a hammer out of thin air, it pounded Jianxing's heart back in place. Jianxing opened her eyes, and a dark figure appeared in her view. A male student held Lan Yu's hand, turned around, his front face illuminating into Jianxing's eyes. It was an unfamiliar face, one that Jianxing had never seen before. They mentioned it was a senior from their school. His suit was properly dressed, quite neat. It wasn't Xu Zhengqing. Even though it was what she wished for, she was shocked for a long time. She stared at them in a daze, spinning around, then she slowly blinked. This was the only action she took since the program started. Wow, they look beautiful, Lin Jia exclaimed from behind. Jianxing exhaled quietly and echoed, yeah, they look good. She looked down and realized that she had been tightly gripping the trousers of her school uniform. The joints of her hand were already stiff and noticeably white due to the strength exerted. When she released her grip, the tension on her skin still lingered. Time was still ticking second by second, but whether it seemed longer or shorter, it had nothing to do with her now. The evening party continued, one performance following another. While the audience was still excited, Jianxing began to lose interest gradually. When Lin Jia and her group decided to take a break and head to the restroom, they asked Jianxing if she wanted to join. She declined without giving it a second thought. Lin Jia gave her a thumbs up. Is this why you don't drink beverages? I should learn from you. Jianxing just gave a small smile. After they left, she once again focused her attention on the stage. Not much later, after one performance ended, a sudden commotion arose among the audience. For some reason, Jianxing had a feeling that something was about to happen. She looked up to see the host, microphone in hand, stepping onto the stage. Seeing the anticipation in the air, the host decided to tease the audience for a while before finally announcing, "Please welcome Xu Zhengqing from Class 1, Grade 1, for a guitar performance. He will be performing Snail." Jianxing, who had been waiting for a while, was frozen at the moment. There, in the center of the stage, was a boy in a simple blue school uniform, cradling a guitar in his arms. He lowered his eyes to tune the strings, and even at a distance, Jianxing could see the light shadow of his lashes on his eyelids. She always seemed to notice these small, intricate details about him. These subtle observations, deep within her, transformed into a protective barrier in her dreams, offering her a unique comfort. She was ordinary and mundane, merely captivated by the light. As the sky darkened, the excitement subsided. The moon, unseen for some time, was now visible to the upper left side of the stage, casting a glow of tenderness on him. He looked up, a soft smile on his lips, his voice carried by the wind as he began to sing. "I want to climb up step by step, waiting for the sun, quietly looking at its face. A small sky has big dreams, heavy shells wrapped in a light gaze. I want to climb up step by step, flying ahead from the highest point on a leaf, the tears and sweat from the small sky. One day, I will have a sky of my own." Soon, the whole school was singing along, their voices creating waves of warmth, reaching towards the star-filled sky. Jianxing quietly watched Xu Zhengqing while singing along. He was wearing a smile, looking down at his guitar and occasionally up at the audience. It was almost as if she was having a brief eye contact with him, only to be lost in an instant. As the event came to a close, a spark ignited in a corner of the schoolyard. Flames shot upward, exploding into a display of fireworks in the darkest corner of the sky. Everybody turned in unison and then looked up. The fireworks were brilliant yet fleeting, but the glow captured in the eyes of the students seemed to stay forever. This was a vibrant, colorful celebration unique to this school. Someone started with a Happy New Year, followed by the rest, their voices rising like a winding tape, its gears shifting. Jianxing turned to look at Xu Zhengqing on the stage amidst everyone's blessings. He was still holding his guitar, perhaps it was a bit heavy. He was now sitting comfortably, with guitar on the side and with his legs stretched out. He tilted his head to watch the fireworks. Everything else was a blur, and he was the clearest memory. Nobody would notice who Jianxing was looking at in this busy moment. This was the only time when she openly watched him for a long time. She wanted to say something, something that always lived inside her heart. Everybody was singing, everyone was celebrating the new year. Even if she raised her voice to speak, no one would know her real intention. Therefore, Happy New Year, Xu Zhengqing. On New Year's Day, school was closed for one day. It happened to be Friday, and the sudden 3-day mini break caught everyone off guard. Unfortunately, regardless of the length of the holiday in high school, it basically ends within various exam papers. By the time you recover, the holiday is already over. The final exam period finally arrived, and the compulsory courses for all subjects barely ended successfully during the rush. On February 2nd, the whole school entered the final exam period. The last exam for the first year of high school ended on the day of the beginning of spring. Although it was the beginning of spring, the weather was still dry and cold. Jianxing and Xu Zhengqing left the classroom one after the other. At this time, it was not yet 5 in the afternoon, and there was only a faint gray in the sky. Today was a cloudy day. With no sun during the day, there naturally wouldn't be a sunset in the evening. All the buildings had returned to their true colors, not ugly, but definitely without any highlights. However, Xu Zhengqing leaned on the railing and watched for a while. He looked very focused from the side, as if he was attracted by something. Jianxing was attracted by him. She curiously walked over, her body stiff, and her gaze dared not glance at the person beside her. She pretended to watch the same direction, but indeed she was blank. All her senses converged on the skin half an inch from her right ear. The youngster was right by her side, his breathing like feathers and like sharp knives. Jianxing's hand was in the pocket, each time scratching the thread in the pocket of the school uniform. The thread was soft, but it seemed a bit rough because of its redundancy. However, at this moment, this bit of discomfort did not affect her at all, because her body had already stiffened like cement pouring. Should she initiate a conversation? If Linjie was here, she would casually chat with Xu Zhengqing, might even jokingly push him when there was a disagreement. Xu Zhengqing would not avoid or fight back, but just laugh it off. This was normal student socializing. Normal. As Jianxing thought, she scratched the thread even more fiercely, with a frequency nearly in sync with her heartbeat, until a slight weight came from her shoulder. It was slight, but as if a crack had appeared in her cemented body. Jianxing's movement of scratching the thread and her heartbeat both stopped simultaneously. Also, her breathing was instantly interrupted. She opened her eyes wide, turned her head sharply, her ponytail unintentionally swept over Xu Zhengqing's arm. Jianxing's pupils abruptly narrowed. She stepped back like she stepped on a high-voltage wire. She stumbled and said, I'm sorry. Xu Zhengqing didn't expect that she would react so strongly just by touching her. Several images flashed through his mind at the same time. Speaking of which, he and Jianxing had known each other for half a year now. They didn't communicate a lot, but because they were on the same floor and Qin Jiaming was there, their interactions were not particularly few either. Now he thought about it carefully. Jianxing was indeed a bit cooler when dealing with people, and maintained a very conservative boundary. Xu Zhengqing, mistaken that he had crossed some boundary of friendship with Jianxing, his face showed obvious apologies and said, "It was my fault for not giving you a heads up." "No," Jianxing replied hurriedly in her heart. But when she looked up into Xu's eyes, Jianxing's throat clenched, and she couldn't say a word. "I just wanted to tell you." Xu Zhengqing raised one hand and pointed his thumb behind him, indicating, "I am leaving first." Speaking with him required her to rehearse dozens of times in her heart, but he was honest and natural with her. He treated her as the most ordinary classmate. Jianxing strained a smile, then realized how awkward she must have looked and quickly composed herself. She acted nonchalantly. I was just a bit absent-minded earlier. It has nothing to do with you. Also, I am leaving too. Have a nice vacation." Without waiting for Xu Zhengqing's response, Jianxing turned around hastily and with brisk steps, her upper body remained steady. Her ponytail hung securely behind her, only gently brushing against her back when the wind blew, leaving a trace that wasn't felt through her thick cotton jacket. The hallway gradually filled with students. During the examination period, there was no strict uniform code, so everyone used to wear their outfits. With different styles and colors in sight, the ordinary blue school uniform seemed special. Xu Zhengqing watched Jianxing disappear around the corner and then he refocused on his hand. After several seconds, he pursed his lips and slapped his hand. The next moment, his hand was grabbed. Xu looked up, meeting Lin Yule's provocative face. Hey, trying to kill a mosquito? I can help. I guarantee the mosquito won't survive," Lin Yule joked. Xu pulled away his hand and asked, "How was your history exam?" Lin Yule immediately zipped his mouth. Xu Zhengqing turned and walked away. Lin Yule followed him, asking, "What's the plan for the holidays, Xu?" Xu gave him a look. Lin Yule chuckled, "And how are we celebrating your birthday?" "We'll see," Xu Zhengqing responded as he took out his phone from his pocket. "While powering it on," he said as he descended the stairs, "if there's any place you want to go, let me know in advance." Upon hearing this, Lin Yule immediately saluted. "I will follow whatever Xu has planned." "Arrange everything in advance," Grandma said while serving Jianxing dishes, talking about the upcoming visit to ancestral graves on New Year's Day. The time to return to our hometown, whether there will be traffic on the way, and whether we can catch the bus back. All these need to be planned ahead. What if there's an emergency? Would you leave Jianxing home alone? I understand. We always manage it smoothly every year, Zhang Shu responded. Besides, she's grown up now. What could possibly happen if she stays at home for a day? She glanced at Jianxing and added, as long as she doesn't run around, even if the sky collapses, she's the last one it would hit. Mind your words. Grandma scolded Zhang Shu, then turned to Jianxing and said with a smile, Jianxing, today is the eve of Chinese New Year. What do you want to eat? Why don't we go and have a look around? Jianxing replied, I don't mind. Spring Festival was a bustling time for everyone. Zhang Shu was no exception, and as soon as she had breakfast, she hurried off with Levi Cheng to the park. Soon after they left, Grandma dragged Jianxing to the market on Yimin Road behind the alley. Yimin Road was an old street selling everything from furniture to fruits, meat, and including clothes and hardware. Grandma strolled around leisurely, attracted by various novelties, and wanted Jianxing to try them all. Jianxing felt bad about trying without buying and kept refusing. Hey, these mini mooncakes, you love them. Come, let's buy 2 pounds. Jianxing, do you want some of these fruits? Let's buy some. We should buy some mandarin oranges in winter. Do you want grapes? It wasn't a long street, but the shopping took them nearly an hour. With so many people around, Jianxing carried several bags, always following closely behind Grandma. During their shopping, a tricycle seemed to bump into a bicycle, instigating an argument. Fearing that Grandma might be squeezed, Jianxing reached out to pull Grandma, let's take another path. Grandma was more interested in the commotion. Let me see what's going on. Jianxing was anxious as she was holding several bags, so she raised her voice, Grandma? Grandma seemed oblivious. She smiled and called for Jianxing. Oh, it's fine, I just want to see. Suddenly, the crowd surged, retreating in Grandma's direction. Jianxing moved all the bags into one hand and was just about to support Grandma's waist, but before she could, another hand quickly caught Grandma's arm. Jianxing was too worried about Grandma to notice who the person was. She was slightly upset. Grandma, I told you to be careful. Just how old are they and how old are you? Even a little excitement gets you in. It's lucky someone. As she looked up while talking, she was slightly surprised when she saw who it was. Lin Jie. Lin Jie exclaimed, what a coincidence. Jianxing nodded. It is indeed. Lin Jie steadied Grandma in her arms. Is this your grandmother? My granny. Jianxing turned to introduce. Granny, this is my classmate, Lin Jie. Oh, a classmate of Jianxing. Are you also here for New Year shopping? Our house is very close by. Feel free to drop by if you're free. Granny warmly took Lin Jie's hand and chattered. Jianxing was worried that Lin Jie might be bothered, and was about to pull Granny away when she saw Lin Jie happily gripping Granny's hand. Sure. I'll definitely come by if I'm free. But not today, Granny. I have other things to do later. Next time for sure. Oh, good, Granny agreed. Jianxing has been a loner since childhood. You're classmates, so please take care of each other. There is no need, Granny. Jianxing is quite popular in our class. With her good grades, everyone wants to be her friend. Lin Jie pointed her chin at Jianxing. Isn't it, Jianxing? Jianxing was taken aback and didn't respond. Really? That's terrific. Grandma continued. Hee, Jianxing, would you give me your home number? I might come over during the vacation. Before Jianxing could respond, Grandma had already recited the number. As Lin Jie left, laughing and chatting with Granny, Jianxing remained in a state of bewilderment. Look at you, just like your father. You don't know how to socialize. It's good that she treats you so kindly. If you keep this attitude, people will stop caring about you, Granny continued. Both of you study in such good schools and are locals. You should interact more. Sometimes you may need others' help. Your parents are having a tough time because they lack connections. Their shopping ended with Granny's incessant chattering. But Jianxing was still processing Lin Jie's words. Lin Jie does seem to be pretty good to her. Her granny's voice snapped her back to reality. Are you listening at all? Your mom would have scolded you by now. Granny reached out to take a bag from Jianxing. Jianxing dodged Granny's hand and responded softly, I got it. A few seconds later, she added, I will be nice to her. She thought Lin Jie asked for her number just to please Granny. However, she never expected that Lin Jie would call on the afternoon of the 28th. When she heard the person on the phone looking for her, she paused, then recognized it was Lin Jie. Lin Jie chuckled, Yes, it's me. Hearing the conversation, Granny looked over from the living room. Jianxing moved the phone aside and said, It's my classmate. Granny made a couple of acknowledging sounds and turned away. Was that your mom? Lin Jie asked over the phone. Jianxing replied, No, it was my granny. Oh, aren't your parents at home? No. Neither mentioned while Lin Jie had called, and Jianxing didn't feel it was her place to ask, as it would feel as though Lin Jie wouldn't have reached out had it not been for a reason. After all, they were friends now. Friends should chat casually. Right? After a few seconds of silence, Lin Jie laughed. Jianxing, aren't you going to ask me what I want? Huh? Jianxing asked, So why did you call? I do have something, Lin Jie replied. When are you going out on the 5th day of New Year? Jianxing paused. What? Xu Zhengqing's birthday, aren't you going? Lin Jie asked. No way, Lin Yule told me you and Xu Zhengqing have known each other for a long time. He must have invited you. Let's go together. Before Jianxing could respond, Lin Jie exclaimed, Oh, do you have a QQ account? I've got to go. Send me your QQ ID, we can continue our chat there. There was a pause, but Jianxing still gave her QQ ID. After Lin Jie repeated it to confirm, she hurriedly hung up. Jianxing remained still for a few seconds, slowly hanging up the phone. She hesitated for a few seconds, then deleted the call history. After leaving Jiangsu's bedroom, Jianxing went straight to her room. As she closed the door, she locked it. She pulled the curtain halfway across the window. In the shadow of the curtain, she took out a mobile phone from the small box in the innermost part of the drawer. She waited for a long time, but never received a friend request. Instead, messages from Chen Yunbei kept coming. White smoke cigarette, why are you so free today? Daring to play with your phone during the day? Bamboo in between, I'm waiting for a message. White smoke cigarette, what do you mean? Someone added you? Bamboo in between, yup. White smoke cigarette, wow, made a new friend. White smoke cigarette, is it your desk mate? I heard from Dogkin that you two are close. White smoke cigarette, but why are you two exchanging QQ now? You've known for so long. Jianxing paused when she read this, and soon replied, it's not him. Chen Yanbei didn't ask why, but just asked, oh then who? New friend? Bamboo in between, yup. A few seconds later, she added, someone a bit like you. Just as Jianxing sent the message, the QQ logo on her phone started flickering. She exited the chat and opened the friend request. The request read, Xu Zhengqing. Jianxing stiffened and was taken aback.